We all have that one person in our lives, the one who walks into a room and just instantly changes the temperature.
Oh, yeah. That's
Like
true.
they don't just enter a situation, they kind of collide with it. Head first, all gas, no brakes.
Right. It's an energy that, well, it completely overrides the baseline of whatever environment they enter. It's magnetic, but, I mean, it can also be entirely exhausting.
And profoundly uncompromising.
Exactly.
Well, when you look at how human psychology maps onto the stars, there's actually a very specific blueprint for this kind of relentless momentum. So welcome to a brand new deep dive.
We are super excited for this one.
Today, we are taking our stack of sources, which, ranges from these modern relationship compatibility guides to some really dense academic textbooks on astrological synastry. And we are pointing all of that directly at the fiery, impulsive world of the Aries archetype.
Yes. Our mission today is to decode the actual mechanics here. We want to figure out why their relationships often start like these massive fireworks displays, but then they can just sort of fizzle out in the rain.
Right, like how does this dynamic energy actually function under the hood?
So whether you're an Aries yourself, or maybe you are hopelessly intertwined with one, or, you're just insanely curious about how ancient human psychology categorizes behavior, this deep dive is going to offer a completely new lens on how we connect and fight and love.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the basic blueprint.
Sounds good.
So Aries covers birthdays from March 21st to April 20th, which makes it the very first sign of the zodiac.
Right, and that placement is huge, because if you think about what is physically happening in the Northern Hemisphere during that specific time, the psychological profile makes perfect sense.
Because it's spring.
Exactly. It's spring. It's the pushing, expanding, almost violent energy of nature waking up, literally bursting through the frozen winter ground.
Yeah, that seasonal shift is such a perfect visual anchor.
It really is. Aries is categorized as a masculine, active fire sign, and it's ruled by the planet Mars. And, in ancient mythology, Mars is the god of war.
So the foundational energy here isn't just about passive growth.
No, not at all. It is about active conquest. It's this primal urge to just push forward into the unknown completely, regardless of the resistance.
And the sources really highlight this. They say their core motto is literally, I want, which is just incredibly unapologetic.
I mean, they know what they want.
They really do. They're described as these dynamic, spontaneous, idealistic fighters. But there is a flip side to I want.
Oh, definitely.
Because they can be terribly impatient, a bit egocentric, and prone to what the texts actually call head-through-the-wall stubbornness.
Head through the wall. I love that phrasing.
It's so accurate. Like, they don't navigate around the obstacle. They just try to obliterate it completely. It's like a high-end sports car with no brakes.
That's the perfect analogy. All horsepower, just jumping into things without looking.
Right. And you see the psychological drive reflected in every single aspect of how they live, even down to their literal physiology.
Yeah, the sources get really specific here, because the ruling planet, Mars, it governs acids in the physical body. And since an Aries runs on such high-octane pioneer energy, their baseline stress levels are naturally elevated.
So they have to manage that physically.
Exactly. The texts are very specific about their diet for this reason. They require premium fuel to sustain that aggressive output.
Like what kind of fuel?
We're talking healthy fats, amino acids, and major brain food. Leafy greens, fatty fish. Because without it, that internal acid builds up and it leads to massive burnout or even severe migraines.
Oh, wow. So it's a very physical manifestation.
Highly physical. And their approach to fitness follows that exact same logic. Because they have zero patience, a long, grueling endurance run is just a nightmare for them.
I was going to say a marathon sounds like torture for an Aries.
Absolute torture. They thrive on explosive, high-intensity output, CrossFit, HIIT workouts, martial arts, and even in something restorative, like, say, yoga, they really only resonate with dynamic, powerful stances. Specifically, the texts mention the Warrior One pose.
Of course, it's the warrior pose.
Naturally.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really crucial to understand where this categorization actually comes from, because it's not just, random magazine horoscopes.
Right, no. Astrology began way back in ancient Mesopotamia. Early humans felt this sort of fluid oneness with the sky. But as human consciousness evolved, they began to separate themselves, recognizing patterns.
They started projecting their internal experiences onto the celestial movements.
Exactly. And fast forward thousands of years, and the pioneering psychoanalyst Carl Jung pointed out something completely revolutionary about this.
Jung is always so fascinating here.
He really is. He argued that astrological signs aren't like magic space rays dictating our fate. They are deep, ancient psychological archetypes. The collective unconscious literally projected onto the stars.
So under a Jungian lens, the Aries isn't just a personality type you get assigned at birth.
No, it represents a fundamental primal part of the human psyche itself. It is the raw human urge to exist. It's the survival instinct.
Wow.
And the real insight from the psychological literature here is that repressing this intense energy is actually highly dangerous.
How so?
Well, if you force an Aries to be quiet or docile and strictly bound to some mundane routine, the energy doesn't just disappear. It becomes destructive.
Right, it has to go somewhere.
Exactly. It turns inward as severe anxiety or outward as just sudden explosive rage. The challenge isn't to stop the sports car. The goal is to steer it constructively.
Yeah.
You don't extinguish the fire. You build a hearth strong enough to contain it.
Build a hearth strong enough to contain it. That's good. Which I think brings us to the most volatile part of the Aries experience.
The relationships.
The relationships. If an Aries is this explosive, pioneering fire, what happens when that sports car inevitably collides with another person?
Because nobody exists in a vacuum.
Right. To understand their connections, we have to transition from individual psychology to the actual mechanics of cosmic chemistry, which the sources refer to as synastry.
Yeah, synastry is the astrological art of relationship comparison.
Yeah.
And it goes significantly deeper than pop astrology.
Like just comparing sun signs.
Exactly. Pop astrology is simplistic, like I'm a Leo, you're an Aries, let's date. Synastry actually overlays two complete birth charts to see exactly where your planetary archetypes trigger the psychological landscape of the other person.
Okay, so the sources mention that the baseline of this comparison starts with the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. I think most people, they know their sun sign, which is your core ego,
Right.
and maybe their moon sign, which is your emotional interior. But the ascendant seems to play a massive role in first impressions here. How does that piece actually work?
So the ascendant, or the rising sign, is the exact zodiacal constellation that was cresting the eastern horizon at the exact moment you were born.
Yeah.
Psychologically, it represents the mask you wear in public. So if your birth chart is a house, the sun is the homeowner, the moon is the private bedroom, but the ascendant is the front door.
Oh, I like that. The front door.
Yeah, it dictates how people actually enter your life. When two people share an element between their core three, like fire meeting fire, they don't really have to explain themselves to each other. They just instinctively understand how the other person's house is built.
But foundational understanding doesn't necessarily mean fireworks, right?
No.
Because when the sources dive into raw physical passion and love, they shift the focus entirely to Venus and Mars.
Yes. Venus represents aesthetics, value, and the way we receive love. Mars, fittingly for our Aries deep dive, represents drive, sexual energy, and how we pursue what we want.
So when you overlay those two charts,
When you overlay them and find that one person's Mars aligns with the other person's Venus, it creates an immediate visceral heat. It is the archetypal meeting of the pursuer and the receiver.
okay, the mechanics get even more fascinating when the texts introduce the concept of astrological houses. They say that when you overlay these charts, planets fall into specific houses, and these houses represent different areas of life, which sounds a bit abstract.
It can be. Think of the birth chart as a circular theater stage, and it's divided into 12 distinct sections, or houses.
Okay.
Each section represents a different stage of human experience. So career, family, communication. When you interact with someone, their planets literally stand on your stages.
Right. And the sources highlight two houses that act as absolute wildcards in relationships, the 8th house and the 12th house. Let's start with the 8th. It's described as being ruled by Pluto, dealing with the dark side, taboos, and intense, almost dangerous attraction.
Yeah, the 8th house is heavy. Imagine it as the locked basement of that theater.
Yeah.
It holds our deepest psychological complexes and our most intense fears.
So what happens if someone's planets land there?
If a partner's planets, say their Venus or Mars, fall into your 8th house, they possess a master key to your basement.
Oh.
Yeah. The attraction there is rarely light or fun. It really borders on obsession.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you to confront the darkest parts of your own psyche through your desire for them.
That sounds exhausting.
Is
Now, the 12th house sounds equally intense, but in a completely different way. It rules the hidden self.
Right. The 12th house is the fog surrounding the theater. It is the realm of dreams, the unconscious, things we haven't fully realized about ourselves.
So if someone's planets land in the fog.
It creates a profound, almost psychic soul connection. But the huge drawback is that because it operates in the unconscious, it is incredibly difficult to articulate your feelings to that person.
Because you can't see clearly in the fog.
Exactly. The energy is hidden away, which often leads to profound miscommunications. It's very frustrating for an Aries who just wants to act.
Right, because they just want to blast through the wall. Now, beyond the houses, you have the outer planets acting as, the texts call it the overarching weather system for the relationship.
A great metaphor.
They claim Jupiter brings expansiveness. Like, if someone's planets touch your Jupiter, you feel a genuine sense of joy and luck around them.
Yes, Jupiter is the great expander.
But Saturn, conversely, is the taskmaster. It's restrictive, it's limiting. Yet the texts are absolutely adamant that without Saturn's gravity, a relationship simply won't last. Like, it's the necessary glue for long-term commitment.
Yeah, Saturn provides the necessary reality check.
Yeah.
It basically says, okay, the party is over. Who is actually paying the mortgage?
Right.
It grounds the passion into tangible day-to-day reality.
Okay, I do want to push back on a detail regarding that passion, though.
Go for it.
The synastry textbooks state that a conjunction, which is when two people's Venus and Mars are in the exact same sign, creates great harmonious chemistry.
Yes, they do.
But they also explicitly say that a square or an opposition between planets generates massive, sometimes even stronger chemistry.
Right.
But in astrology, aren't squares supposed to mean bad friction? Like, why is friction generating the most heat in a romantic overlay?
It really just comes down to the literal laws of physics, translated into psychology. Conjunctions bring lasting peace because the energies perfectly align. They're sitting right next to each other.
Okay.
But hard aspects, like a square where planets are 90 degrees apart and sort of grinding against each other, they generate friction. And in physics, just like in romance, friction creates heat.
Ah, I see.
When you have two psychological energies constantly rubbing against each other, challenging each other's assumptions, it creates this huge electric spark. The tension demands a resolution that never quite arrives.
Which makes it practically impossible to resist, even if that constant grinding drives you completely crazy over the long haul.
Oh, the insanity is the appeal. The tension is what keeps the ego engaged.
Which perfectly explains the biggest, most notorious hurdle an Aries faces when they fall in love. Because this specific craving for friction is the root of the ultimate Aries love paradox.
Yes, it raises a very important question. What happens to the archetypal conqueror when they actually win the war?
When they get what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, according to the sources, they get incredibly bored. For an Aries, feelings are deeply driven by desire. They burn incredibly bright, fast, like a shooting star. And the core problem is that they constantly confuse the adrenaline of infatuation with actual deep love.
Right, because they're wired for the chase.
Wired for the chase. So they make these hasty, massive commitments. They sweep you off your feet, proclaim their undying devotion, and then the desire is satisfied. And without the fire of the pursuit, the emotional landscape just suddenly feels barren to them.
And so, to keep those butterflies alive, an Aries will subconsciously seek out suffering or frustration.
Yeah.
They actively look for that 90-degree frictional square we just talked about.
Just to feel something.
Right. If everything in the relationship is calm, they misinterpret that peace as emptiness. They'll manifest toxic drama, or get drawn into complex love triangles, or relentlessly chase emotionally unavailable partners.
Wow.
If they don't have to fight to keep the connection, their primal archetype literally feels unemployed.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I was reading this and I thought, it's like they love the thrill of the unboxing video more than actually using the product once it's open.
That is exactly it.
You know, the tearing of the paper, the anticipation of the unknown, the huge dopamine hit of the shiny new thing. But once the product is just sitting on the shelf doing exactly what it's supposed to do, they're already scrolling the catalog for the next model. They are totally addicted to the opening sequence.
And the linguistic context provided in the sources actually validates that analogy perfectly. The word passion derives from the Latin word passio, which literally translates to suffering.
Wait, really? Suffering.
Yes. Think of the historical use of the word, like the Passion of the Christ. Aries fundamentally equates romantic love with suffering, with obstacles, and the agony of the hunt.
So a peaceful, well-adjusted Tuesday evening on the couch just feels like a psychological failure to them.
It feels like apathy. And the spiritual homework for the Aries archetype, the real lesson here, is to realize that true, committed love isn't just about the fireworks of the initial unboxing.
Right.
The ultimate challenge for this pioneer energy is learning the patience to explore the vast, calm, deep waters of a long-term partner. From a Jungian perspective, they have to realize that every single human being contains an endlessly unfolding universe of shadow and light within them.
There's always more to explore.
Exactly. If an Aries can channel that urge to conquer into exploring the endless depths of one person's psyche, rather than just hopping superficially from one initial spark to the next, the relationship becomes a lifelong adventure.
Okay, so if an Aries needs a vast universe to explore and a partner who won't just let them get bored and walk away, which astrological signs provide the best landscape for that adventure? The texts have a lot to say about this.
There you go.
Let's look at the celestial dance.
Well, the elements dictate the fundamental compatibility here. Fire needs either more fire to sustain its burn, or air to fan the flames and give it direction.
So let's start with fire and air. Specifically, Aries and Gemini. The sources describe this as a complete whirlwind of intellect and physical energy.
Definitely.
Gemini is an air sign ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication. They share a massive love for spontaneity. Like, they are the couple that will wake up on a Tuesday and just impulsively decide to drive across the country.
Oh, for sure. The friction here, though, lies in their communication styles. Because Aries is notoriously blunt. They speak in declarations and exclamation points.
Very direct.
Right. Gemini, however, is adaptable, intellectually curious, and honestly often evasive. They flit from topic to topic, examining things from multiple angles, rather than taking a firm stance.
Which would drive an Aries crazy.
Exactly. So for this to survive, the Aries must learn the lost art of active listening. And the Gemini must learn to stand their ground when Aries tries to, bulldoze the conversation.
Right. Okay, moving to a fire and fire matchup. Aries and Sagittarius. Now, on the zodiac wheel, these two are 120 degrees apart. And the texts call this geometric angle a trine, stating it's a highly harmonious aspect. Why does 120 degrees matter?
So on a 360-degree circle, points that are 120 degrees apart form a perfect equilateral triangle.
Oh.
In sacred geometry and astrology, the triangle represents stability, flow, and extreme ease.
Okay, that makes sense.
When an Aries and a Sagittarius connect, the energy flows between them without hitting any corners or friction points. They are both wildly independent, optimistic, and driven by this mutual need for expansive adventure.
It sounds like a perfect fit on paper, but the sources do warn about the shadow side of all that freedom.
They do, yeah.
Because the trine creates such an easy flow of independence, they can actually forget to build a central emotional tether. It's like two independent travelers who occasionally share a tent, but never actually build a house together.
That's exactly the risk.
If they don't actively work on emotional intimacy, they just simply drift apart on their separate quests.
Which brings us to the most complex dynamic of all.
Yes, the one that really made me scratch my head, Aries and Libra. These two are exactly opposite each other on the zodiac wheel. Libra is an air sign ruled by Venus, and the Libra archetype is diplomatic, obsessed with aesthetics, and will basically bend over backward to avoid conflict.
Right.
Meanwhile, Aries is direct, confrontational, and ruled by the god of war. But the sources insist that the god of war and the ultimate diplomat are a fantastic match.
They do.
How does that not end in total disaster? I mean, imagine them just trying to resolve an argument. The Aries wants to scream and break a plate to release the tension, while the Libra wants to sit down, lower their voices, and discuss the aesthetic imbalance of the relationship over a cup of tea.
It sounds like a sitcom, honestly. But what's fascinating here is the astrological concept of polarity. Because they are exactly 180 degrees apart, they operate as a complete cosmic mirror. They possess exactly what the other lacks.
Okay, I'm listening.
Left entirely to their own devices, an Aries can become dangerously aggressive, alienating everyone around them. A Libra, on the other hand, consumed by the need for harmony, can become such a severe people-pleaser that they completely lose their own identity.
So it's less about them being a lock and key and more about them forcing each other to integrate their shadow selves.
Precisely. It is the Jungian mechanism completely at play. Aries teaches the accommodating Libra how to finally tap into their primal will, how to take a stand, draw a firm boundary, and actually fight for what they want.
And in return.
In return, Libra teaches the headstrong Aries the immense calculated power of tact, style, and compromise. Libra proves to Aries that you can often win a war much faster using diplomacy rather than a sword.
Wow.
It is the ultimate cosmic tension. But when both parties are willing to learn from their opposite, It creates a perfectly balanced human experience.
They basically force each other to evolve past their factory default settings. Which really brings us full circle on this entire journey today. We've explored the primal, explosive spring fire of the Aries archetype. We've looked under the hood at the mechanical theater of synastry, exploring how ascendants, houses, and the physics of friction actually fuel human attraction.
And we've unpacked that vital difference between the adrenaline spike of the chase and the vast, deep waters of sustainable love.
Right. The core takeaway here applies regardless of your own birth chart's specific geometry. Whether you are an Aries trying to understand the restless drumbeat in your own heart, or you're navigating the whirlwind of dating one, or you're just trying to manage the friction in your own interpersonal dynamics.
The lesson is very clear. True passion is never just about that initial blinding spark. Anybody can strike a match. The real challenge is tending that fire with enough patience and structure so it consistently warms the house instead of just letting it burn the entire theater down in 5 minutes.
So what does this all mean? Ultimately, as the historical texts constantly remind us, the stars incline, they do not bind. Astrology isn't a strict, inescapable rulebook dictating your fate. It is a symbolic map. It's a language designed to help you visualize your own psychological landscape, identify your triggers, and chart a course for your own growth.
And if we take Carl Jung's perspective seriously, if these zodiac signs are genuinely just the ancient collective instincts of humanity projected onto the night sky, then the Aries energy doesn't just live in people born in April.
It's everywhere.
It lives inside the collective unconscious of all of us. It is our shared primal will to exist, to conquer our darkest fears, and to feel deeply, viscerally alive.
That uncompromising momentum that changes the temperature of the room, it's sitting somewhere in your chart and your psyche, too. So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Something to really think about.
Ask yourself, where in your own life are you burning a little too fast? Where are you chasing the toxic drama of the unboxing just to feel alive? And where do you need to finally put down the sword and let the fire settle into a steady, lasting glow?